Hi, I'm on the Queen Mary 2, somewhere between New York City and Newport, Rhode Island. I'm on a sheltered balcony, and that black area behind me is actually the ocean. It's late at night. And I wanted to tell you about day one plus our embarkation and how it went. I'm Sandy from Sandy Over 70. Welcome to my channel. I hope you'll enjoy this video, and if you do, give me a thumbs up and please consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. There's been quite a few ups and downs in my journey to get on this ship over the past 2 days. And today is day one on the ship, but we actually arrived yesterday and we stayed in Manhattan. Now this time I used Cunard's package program. They bundled everything for me, and I'm trying to make life easier in my 70s, and the ship is shaking, and I hope the camera isn't moving too much, but there is a vibration out here. And so I let them package everything. That is the pre-stay hotel and the transportation from the airport to the hotel and from the hotel to the ship. So how did it go? Well, the flight from Asheville to LaGuardia was great. It was a non-stop flight. We got there in 2 hours, no complaints, everything was great. I knew that I was probably going to be met by someone from Cunard at the airport, probably in the baggage department, and I was hoping they showed up, because honestly I wasn't sure what I would do if no one was there. I'd have to dig around in my bag for some kind of contact number for Cunard. But I love it when this happens. We were coming down an escalator, and at the very bottom I saw 2 people with signs for cruise ships, and I said, yes, that's them. And it was. And we had a lovely young college student who immediately took us to the baggage area where our bag was coming in, so I didn't have to look around too much, and then helped us with our bags to the waiting transportation vehicle, which was a gigantic SUV. There was no one else in it except for us. And it was probably, I'm trying to think, well, maybe a good 30 to 45 minutes to get from the airport to the hotel. The hotel was the Sheraton Times Square, and it was a great hotel. It truly was in Times Square, right in the middle of everything. So that first night we ate dinner in the hotel, and then we walked around in Times Square, and honestly, I lived there in the 80s, and I don't remember that many people being in Times Square on a Thursday night. There were thousands and thousands of people. It was absolutely amazing. I took a lot of video, which I'll show you here. It was full of costume characters. There was a stilt person, someone on stilts, who was dressed up as the Statue of Liberty. There were Mickey Mouse characters. And there was a stage set up right in the middle of Times Square, huge stage, and there was a singer, a Latin singer, singing in Spanish. Crowds gathered around, very loud music. And something new that I had not seen before was a Hershey chocolate store. So we went in there and had some fun in the Hershey chocolate store, where they had chocolate everywhere. It was heavenly, that's for sure. Outside there were a lot of photographers with video cameras videotaping you as you walked by, and I really didn't get that. I mean, maybe they thought they were going to sell the video. It was kind of, I didn't like it, being videotaped without my permission, for sure, but I'm not quite sure what they do with it. Now comes the bad part. When I got back to the hotel, I really studied the information that they had given me, and I should have looked at it earlier for sure, because they gave me a sheet of paper with a code on it, and it said, go to this website and you have to apply for an ETA, and if you don't, you can't board the ship. So I did some internet search and I couldn't definitively determine whether I needed it or not. And so I knew that there was a hospitality desk in the lobby, and I went down there, but unfortunately that person had left. And there was really no one to ask until the next morning at 8 a.m. So I set my clock with plans to go down there at 8 a.m. and let me tell you, I did not sleep well. I thought, what if I can't get on the ship and we have to fly home? I know that's crazy, but that's what it said on the paper. It was just awful. And I thought, why did they tell us this when we're at the hotel? Because when I went to the website, you had to apply for this, and it said it was 16 euros, and they would let you know in a day or two whether you're accepted. Well, a day or two, I would have missed the ship. I tossed and turned all night with worry, I really did. But I went down there at 8 a.m. the next morning, and he said, oh yeah, that's not necessary, it's wrong. He said, we keep telling them not to send that letter and not to send that code, but they do. Really? Really? He said, we have to talk to every single passenger and tell them they don't need that. This is for U.S. citizens. We don't need that. And if this happens to you and you're going to Canada, this is a cruise that is going to New England and Canada, you do not need this ETA permission thing. And I can't believe that they keep telling people that they do it. He said, didn't you come here yesterday? I would have told you. I said, well, I got here at 7 and you were gone. So that was really bad. Now the next morning, we had a breakfast with an old friend of mine who lives in Manhattan, and that was fine. So we ate breakfast in the restaurant there off the lobby at 9 a.m. She lives here, she lives in Greenwich Village, and she was shocked at the pricing. If you eat in the hotel, it's $38 a person for breakfast, and I'm a very small eater. My husband ate at least more food than I did, and she ate as much as she could because she was shocked. I wasn't as shocked because I have stayed in these hotels prior to cruising before, and I know that breakfast will run around $35. We could have tried to look around on the street for some other place, but I just knew everything would be very crowded. And in fact, we had to wait in line quite a while just to get into this restaurant. Okay, the next problem area was that we had to check out at 11 a.m. of our room and drag our bags down to the lobby and wait until 12:30 when the bus would be taking us to the ship. Now I say drag our bags because this is a 2-week cruise and it has 4 gala nights, plus there is ballroom dancing every night. So you can imagine the amount of clothing I took. Now, not everybody, of course, dresses up as much as I do, but I love dressing up, and I had 4 gowns in that suitcase. So we had 2 very large suitcases and 1 roll-on suitcase. So we rolled them down to the lobby, and then there was no place to sit. There were a few chairs. So I sat on the floor for about 45 minutes. Not good. I mean, really not good. And finally at 12:30, we did get on the bus. It was about almost an hour to get from Manhattan to the port in Brooklyn. I mean, really, traffic was, of course, very bad. So I had reserved an ocean view room. That is one with a window but no balcony, because I figured that it would be cold going north, and of course it will be. But then I had second thoughts, and when I got an email saying I could bid on upgrades, I bid. Unfortunately, I did not get any of the 4 upgrades that I bid on, and I'm pretty sure I know why. Because I kept changing the amount I was bidding. I really wanted the club balcony or even a princess grill. And so I kept upping it and probably changed it 3-4 times. And in the end, I had put the maximum bid in for the club balcony, and I still did not get it, but I'm sure that's because I did it like a couple days before. So that's a lesson to be learned. If you're bidding on something, bid early and just leave the bid alone, because I think they may do it by priority, who bid first, if there's 2 or 3 people. So I was very disappointed at not getting what I had hoped for, but I knew I'd have a very nice ocean view room. So the embarkation process was really very good. Since we were there at 12:30, there was no one really in line, very few people in line, and they had a lot of staff, and it moved very quickly. I have no complaints about that. There was an extra form for it, kind of an immigration form that we had to fill out for Canada that probably took maybe 15 minutes to do that and then to get that approved, and maybe 15 to 20 minutes at the most to actually check in. So I have no complaints about any of that. So after that was complete, we went into the ship, and they were checking our boarding pass at the door. And the lady who was checking ours, she just couldn't seem to find what she was looking for, and she said, "Please step aside." I thought, oh no, something's wrong. You know, as it was, there'd been so many problems. I thought, here's another one. I just want to get into that cabin because I was pretty stressed. So then she said, go over to this other man who was checking people in. I thought, oh, there's a problem for sure. And he looked and looked and looked, and then he said to me, oh, your room is, and he gave me a room number that was different from the one I was expecting. And I thought, maybe I've been upgraded, because I had also said I would be willing to be upgraded for a complimentary upgrade way back. And I know that they do that sometimes. So I could not wait to see the cabin and to see if I had an upgrade. And I did. I got a complimentary upgrade to a sheltered balcony, which is one of the upgrades I had to even bid on, because a sheltered balcony is kind of weird. It's kind of an opening in the steel hull. But it's nice, and I'm sitting out here, and it's almost midnight, and it's beautiful still. I think it'll get colder as we go north, but I'm sitting out here. There's a nice bright light, and I'm recording on this sheltered balcony. I was thrilled, because after I had reserved the ocean view cabin, I realized that we're going to be here for 2 weeks, and what if I just want to step outside? Well, that wasn't going to happen, and now I can do that. So, very, very happy about that. After we found our room, we did the safety drill and checked in at our station, and then we had lunch in the buffet, and it was fine, except that we thought that they only had a little food out, because where we were standing, there was just a couple things to eat. Well, we found out at the other end was a huge buffet that we hadn't even seen, and so we had a little bit more food there. After that, our bags arrived relatively quickly, and we started unpacking, but because we had been up quite early and I had been stressed over many things during the day, I got halfway unpacked and I just couldn't move. I just was totally exhausted. So we both laid down on the bed and fell fast asleep for about an hour and a half, which was fine. We needed it badly. Now, as far as dining goes, I always like to have a reserved table early, but that was not an option even when I reserved a while back. We were given open dining, which means you go to a dining room at any time you want. And so we did do that. And we had to wait in line maybe I don't know, 5-10 minutes. It wasn't too bad. There were probably 8 people, maybe 10 people ahead of us, and they were seated one after another. They asked if we wanted to sit alone or with others, and I said, you know, we'd like to sit alone, but we'll sit with others if we have to. And he immediately took us to a table for 2, which was very nice. There were a lot of empty tables in there, but it was quite late at this point. It was, I think it was at like 8:30, and they were serving till 9. I knew that the dancing was starting at 9, so we only had 2 courses. The menu was good. We both had chicken marsala, which actually wasn't chicken marsala. It was an Indian flavored meal. It had a delicious Indian chicken with rice and naan bread. It was very, very good. And then for my appetizer, I had some sliced pears. So I have no complaints about this particular meal. It was very good. So we headed over to the Queen's Room, which is very near to the Britannia dining room, and that's where the ballroom dancing was. So we danced for about an hour there to their band. They had 2 singers, a woman and a man. There were lots of dancers. In fact, there's Dancers at Sea, which is a travel agency, had their people there, but it wasn't overcrowded. Now, it could be because it's the first night and a lot of people are tired. Now, I asked when I came in if there was any chance of getting an early seating in the reserved dining room, and they said I had to seat the maitre d' after I ate. But I went to see the maitre d' while I was waiting for the food to come. I didn't want to miss him. And at first he said, absolutely not. He said, look at this, I've got pages of people on the wait list. And I thought, well, this is what always happens. I never get my reserved seating. I said, how about later reserved seating? And then he said, wait a minute, would you be willing to eat with others? And I said, well, sure. And he said, well, I can put you at a table for 6 at 6 p.m. reserved seating. And I said, yes, that would be wonderful. So we have a reserved table seating for 6 p.m. beginning tomorrow. And I think this is going to be so much better because I really like having the same serving staff. Every day they get to know you, and I certainly am looking forward to meeting our table mates because it makes it so interesting and you can meet some really nice people that way. After dinner, we headed over to the theater because there is, of course, a show, and tonight it was a trumpet player, and he was excellent. Really, really good. I enjoyed the show very, very much. And I will say the theater was empty. There were maybe a couple of hundred people there, and they were tired. People are tired. If we hadn't had that nap, we would not have been able to do anything. But that nap really rejuvenated us. I caught a couple of people around me that were dozing for sure. After the show, we went back to the ballroom, and they were just wrapping up because it was about 11 o'clock and there were only 2 couples dancing, and I was very disappointed. We were ready to dance some more, but they have a disco, a late night disco that was open and running, and so we went there. It's right behind the ballroom, and they were playing some great music, and we started dancing in there. We had a great time in there. Eventually, the other people that were there left, and for quite a while, I'd say for about a half hour, we were the only ones in there, and they were playing music just for us. Now, it was a live group, and when they took a break, there was disco music, there was a DJ. But when the live band came back, they played music just for us. They just knew we wanted ballroom dancing. I guess they could tell because that's what we were doing. So they played a cha-cha for us. They played a waltz for us. And we were the only ones in the whole nightclub. It was amazing, and we had so much fun. It was just so nice. But it was funny that we're the only ones awake. Yes, we are. We are night owls, and there you go. Proves it. So I am now back in the cabin and decided to do this video while everything's fresh in my mind and I could share it with you. So thanks for watching, and I'll be back with more tomorrow and the next day and the next day. There's a lot of days more here. Good night.